Today, the 2011 American psychological thriller Dream House will be the subject of our analysis. Will Atenton, the main character, retires at the film's start. He works as a well-known editor for a newspaper in New York City. He's leaving the business to spend more time with his family and publish a book. His co-workers say goodbye with tremendous delight and well wishes, telling him they will miss him. He greets his lovely wife, Libby, when he gets home. Hearing that they would spend more time at home makes her very happy. 2 kids, Trish and Dee Dee, surprise their father with a painting on the staircase wall. This family is genuinely happy. Libby asks Will what novels he will write, but he won't answer and claims it will be more fun as a surprise. Libby thanks him for the flowers she discovered on the porch that morning, but he confirms it was not from him. Instead, he believes the flower to be from Livy's covert admirer, but they don't give it much thought and let it go. The next day, while Will is clearing his yard of snow, he notices a man across the street, glaring at him. Jack Patterson is the man's name. He was formerly married to Anne, his next-door neighbour. He is here to pick up Chloe, his daughter. To his ex-wife, Jack is obnoxious and unpleasant. He throws Will a sarcastic glance as he drives away with his daughter. Jack reviews his financial accounts, which are not good, and receives an email casting doubt on the decision to uphold the child custody appeal. He is distressed by the news. Dee Dee suddenly rushes away in terror and hides beneath Will's desk while in his room. According to Trish, Dee Dee noticed a man standing in front of the glass. Will looks through the glass, but no one's there. According to Dee Dee, the man appeared wicked and had a large head. Will comforts his daughter by suggesting that it may have just been a tree or her reflection in the window. They're all startled by the sudden collapse of the ceiling tent and giggle together. Will aims to fix his roof tent the following day. Unexpectedly, he discovers footsteps the size of a large man. The footsteps show that the person was keeping an anxious eye on his family from every angle of his home. Libby inquires about his well-being. He responds by complimenting her on how stunning she is. He asks her to remain in that state indefinitely. Will is awakened from his sleep one night by noises coming from the basement. He discovers several teenage punks doing seance practices. They flee after Will reprimands them, but Will is able to capture one of the girls and queries what they were doing in his basement. They claim that the murder of the prior owner was the main factor. She can't believe Will lives there and doesn't know about the murder case. When he inquires about it, they all cheer as one of the lads announces that he's back. They turn to go, leaving Will even more perplexed. Will meets with 2 police officers in the morning and inquires about the murder case involving the previous owner of his residence. Since the case has not been resolved, the police do not wish to provide any details. The only information provided by the authorities is that the father was the primary suspect and was still alive. The father was shot by his wife at the time of the incident, but he survived. The police won't provide the case's paperwork. He is not happy with their explanation. When Will gets home, he notices the kids shivering in their mother's arms. According to Libby, kids heard their neighbour saying that everyone who resided in their home had been killed. The kids were terrified by this. Will expresses his worries to his neighbour. Anne says she will talk to her daughter. When Will asks, Anne denies placing the flowers on his doorstep. When Will tries to learn more about the punks in his basement, she reveals she has no idea where they reside. Anne and Chloe are still looking at Will as he bids goodbye. When Libby awakens in the night, she discovers Will cleaning the basement of any ritualistic elements. Peter Ward's slaughterhouse is written on the wall, and Libby also reads it. She inquires about Peter Ward. When Libby eventually learns about the home, they begin to argue. She regrets that they chose to relocate there. He claims he'll do whatever it takes to make the house safe and attempts to soothe her down. When Libby glances out of the window, she notices a person standing outside their home. Will rushes outdoors, but trips. It appears that what Dee Dee observed was accurate. Someone was keeping an eye on their home. The following day, the kids are not to be found. However, they are later discovered by their parents in a hidden room at the back of a cupboard where they're engaged in play. Trish discovers a new toy with the name of Beatrice, while Will discovers a storybook that belonged to Catherine Ward. They believe the objects belonged to the building's former residents. Later, Libby and Will go through the article they discover in the basement. It describes how the previous family was killed. Will finds from there that the suspect was brought to a mental health facility. Anne arrives bearing meals and expresses regrets for the prior incident. When Will informs Libby that Anne is visiting, Libby responds, "I'll see you in a minute." However, she doesn't show up until after Anne has left. Will approaches Libby and inquires as to her lack of a neighbourly greeting. She softly gestures to the house where the family had been shot. Bullet holes can be seen in the wall. They discover from the old newspapers that Peter Ward was receiving care at Greenhaven Mental Hospital. Will visits the mental health facility. The staff informs him that he needs to wait. Will then notices Peter Ward's name in rack 308. He enters room 308 discreetly. He is enraged when he discovers his family portrait. Suddenly, Will feels someone touching him from behind. He assumes it to be Peter Ward and urges him to keep away from his family. The man claims he is not Peter Ward and shows a letter of release of Peter Ward from the hospital. Will returns. The reality that Peter Ward is no longer in the hospital is ultimately revealed to Libby. She rejects his attempts to persuade her that everything is okay. Then, unexpectedly, an automobile appears outside. Will jumps away when the car tries to attack him when he steps outdoors. He believes Peter Ward is the source of the danger. The cops show up shortly. Will tries to explain all that took place to the police, but they don't just seem to buy it. This couple doesn't understand why the cops won't assist them. Will returns to the Greenhaven Mental Institution the next day. Because he's concerned about his family, he pleads for information on Peter Ward. The staff then plays a video of Peter Ward trying to break free from a mental institution to find the person who murdered his family. Anne Peterson, who visited Peter, is also seen in the video. Will is now inclined to believe Anne is connected to this issue. The staff finishes the video by claiming that Peter Ward did not think he killed his entire family. Instead, Peter preferred to make up new names based on the hospital ID, since he disliked using his name. When the staff played back the footage, it was evident that Will and Peter Ward were the same people. The person said he's been in the hospital for 5 years, and he gave himself the name Will Atenton based on the hospital idea. Will becomes Will, while 8-10-10 becomes Atenton. Will struggles to accept that he is Peter Ward. Then, after failing to reach his wife, he exits. The individuals in the office at the start of the narrative look to be other hospital patients along the corridor. He acknowledges that he is Peter Ward at last. Peter goes back to his home, which now appears outdated and deserted. He ultimately realizes that his family is a figment of his imagination. When Peter lights a candle, his delusions come back. Peter makes an effort to convince his family of their non-existence. He reveals to Trish, his first kid, that she is Beatrice, while Libby is Elizabeth Ward, and Dee Dee is Catherine. The hallucinations, meanwhile, persisted still. Up until he goes to sleep, Will gets a fever. Libby's call awakens him. Their girls are both feverish. Trish and Dee Dee's bodies both have bullet wounds. Libby is still trying to escape reality. She's upset with Peter because he refuses to support their children. He reassures her. Unexpectedly, the door is knocked on. The house is sealed by the authorities because it is uninhabitable. It appears that he was the subject of a police report. He then approaches Anne and inquires her as to her involvement in the police complaint, but instead, she queries his memory of her. He hardly recognizes her. Peter tries to enter his home once the police have left, but someone emerges from the house because Peter cannot see his face as it is dark. Then, the person pushes him and accuses him of killing his family. Peter visits Anne's home the next day to find out where she was when the event occurred. Anne claims that she was at home when her daughter was with her father. Peter inquires as to the purpose of her visits to the hospital. She says that Libby was a good friend and they were neighbours. Chloe joins them as they continue to converse. Anne claims Chloe was his girl's friend, misses them, and was the one who delivered flowers to his home. Peter now recognises Anne and Chloe as decent individuals who are concerned for his family. Anne sends Dr. Peter Greeley's contact information. He was cared for by her at the Greenhaven Mental Institution. When Peter runs across to her, he inquires as to his release. Dr. Greeley confirms there was no concrete proof implicating him. He declines her offer to care for him once more. He is committed to finding his family's murderer. Peter returns to his home once it darkens and attempts to resume his hallucinations. He coerces Libby into telling him what took place that evening. He hears Libby tell him that she assumed it was him when she heard someone on the stairs. The next thing she realized she was on the ground and the little children were hurt. Anne suddenly knocks on the door. She attempts to persuade Peter to leave the house and let go of his past. Then he sees a glimpse of what transpired that evening. He was talking to Libby on the cell phone as he pulled up in front of his house. At that moment, a person was standing over Libby and the kids while brandishing a rifle. The man was told to put the pistol down by Libby. Peter, who was still on the other end of the line, was aware that a threat existed in his home. The man shot his revolver carelessly before Will could run into the home to stop him. Libby attempted to grab the gun while already on the ground and shoot the assailant. Instead, she struck her husband. Peter recalls what transpired that evening at this point. He is happy that he wasn't responsible for the murder of his family. He embraces Anne. Suddenly, Jack Peterson appears. He is, however, with the man who murdered Peter's family. That person strikes Peter. Peter and Anne are put to sleep by Jack and the hitman using sedatives. It is revealed that the hitman accidentally killed Will's family while attempting to assassinate Anne 5 years ago. To get back their child's property and insurance, Jack wants to kill Anne. However, the hitman killed the incorrect family after entering the wrong home. Jack shoots the hitman because he made a mistake 5 years ago. Peter and Anne are then placed in the basement. He plans to set their home on fire and let them burn along with it. Jack can't see Libby, but she appears to be following him down the basement. In an effort to awaken Peter, it appeared that Libby's spirit was present, proving that she had not been merely Peter's delusion all along. Peter succeeds in rising and defeating Jack. After saving Anne, they both successfully flee the home. In the meantime, the hitman, who is still alive, fuels Jack, setting him ablaze. Outside, Anne receives a hug from Chloe. Then, after recalling something, Peter returns to the burning home to bid farewell to his family. He retrieves all of the written novels he had left under the stairs. He ultimately moves on from his family and lets go of them. Then, inspired by his own life's narrative, he wrote the novel Dream House. It succeeds in becoming a national bestseller.